The red on-air light is the only thing breathing in that pitch-black studio, and the moment it flickers to life, you can feel it. This isn't television, this is an execution. Across the glass desk sits a man who once swore this room would never see him. A man who spent years calling the other man a bully, a monster, a liar, and yet here he is. Prince Harry, pale, unshaven, hollow-eyed. The California glow evaporated. This is not the prince who ran. This is the prince who came back carrying a coffin. He doesn't greet anyone, doesn't ask for water, doesn't even blink. He reaches down, unzips a battered leather satchel, and drops it on the desk. The sound is brutal, heavy, final. It doesn't land like paper, it lands like a verdict. Inside, 300 pages bound tight with thick rubber bands. Old school, deliberate, angry. The kind of stack that says, I didn't come to talk, I came to end something. For the first time in his career, Piers Morgan doesn't speak. Harry leans forward. His voice is dry, cracked, the voice of a man who has rehearsed this confession 1,000 times alone. 5 words. You were right about everything. This isn't an interview. This is a surrender. Harry pushes the pile across the desk. 300 pages, he says. I call it the exit file. Divorce petition, evidence, receipts, recordings, timelines. He found it all in a safe while she was away in Los Angeles. A safe he was never supposed to open. A safe that held the black box from the crash site of his marriage. Piers finally touches the top page. The title stares back in cold ink, Project Awakening, a timeline of deception. Why bring this here? Why now? Why to him? Harry doesn't hesitate, because you were the first one she ghosted. The canary in the coal mine. I didn't listen then, I'm listening now. And then the line that changes everything, I want you to read it to them. Read it to the world. Burn it all down. The Duke of Sussex has defected, and he didn't come empty-handed. He came with proof. Prince Harry gives Piers Morgan the first tab is read. The infiltration. The camera pushes in as the pages open. Dates, transcripts, metadata, screenshots. This isn't emotion, this is logistics. So you're telling me, Piers says slowly, that before you even met, there was a plan? Harry nods. It wasn't fate, it was a funnel, and I was the target. The next section hits harder. Surveillance and data collection. Transcripts of private conversations. Conversations between William and Charles. Conversations that took place inside Nottingham Cottage. Rooms swept for bugs. Rooms thought to be safe. Harry doesn't look up. She didn't need bugs, she was the bug. The file alleges recording devices hidden in jewelry, coat lapels, undersides of tables. The Sandringham Summit? Recorded. The kitchen argument with William? Recorded. Every family fracture archived. She called it her insurance policy, Harry mutters. Said she was keeping a diary for history. He laughs once, bitter. She wasn't writing history, she was building a wiretap archive. Piers lifts a photograph from the file. Diamond earrings Meghan wore to a garden party. Circled in red, a tiny anomaly. A microphone? He asks. A receiver? Harry corrects. She was feeding audio out in real time. File names scroll past the camera like gravestones. Kate crying bridesmaids.wave queen final warning.mp3 air argument.mp3. She recorded my grief, Harry says, voice cracking. And sold it. The next tab is thicker. The Arkawell audit, bank statements, LLCs, shell companies in Delaware and Wyoming, names that sound gentle, harmless, loving kindness holdings, Mama Bear Ventures, compassion in action. Compassion, Piers scoffs. This looks like laundering. Harry doesn't argue. 95%, he says flatly. 95% of donations didn't go to charity. They went to wardrobe, travel, PR crisis management retainers. One line item punches through the room. Sunshine Sachs, $2.5 million. Paid from charitable funds. Donors thought they were funding vaccines. They were funding image repair. Then comes the transfer that silences everyone. The Doria dividend. Monthly payments, $10,000. Routed to a company tied to Doria Ragland. The silence fee, Harry admits. She's not just a grandmother, she's on payroll. The yoga teacher image, a front. Then Piers turns to a contract. Archetypes podcast agreement. Clause 44. All intellectual property belongs to the Duchess. The Duke is classified as talent for hire. You're an employee, Piers breathes. I was a prop, Harry replies, the mascot. And then the tab no one wanted to open. Handwritten label. The children. This is the nuclear button, Piers warns. Harry looks up, eyes wet, jaw set. I didn't leave because of the press. I left because I found the medical files, emails, fertility clinics, production schedules, photos of prosthetics. The words land like a gunshot. Production schedule, trimester 3. Request for lighter silicone molds. Notes about camera resolution. Fiji tour logistics. She treated it like a role, Harry says. I thought I felt them kick, but she was managing optics, birth certificates, a doctor who doesn't exist. twist. Why fake it? Piers asks. Control, Harry answers. If palace doctors were involved, oversight existed. This way, she owned everything, including the children. They were leverage, he whispers. The refusal to stand on hospital steps? Not privacy. A reveal strategy. And just when it feels like it can't get darker, the next tab appears. The bot farm. Invoices. Digital marketing firms. Sentiment analysis. Counter-narrative deployment. Target, Catherine, Princess of Wales. Objective, amplify rumors. Budget, $50,000. She approved the drafts, Harry says, then cried at breakfast about tabloids. Graphs spike precisely at the Queen's death. She wanted it to burn, Harry whispers. She wanted a replacement court. The final tab before the end is marked. The handler, Doria Raglan. Background checks. Missing years. Sealed records. She wasn't making candles, Harry says. She was inside. Prison. Fraud. Records scrubbed. Emails from 2016 surface. Play the victim. Be Diana. Harry stares at the desk. They rehearsed it. I was the audience of one. The last page isn't typed. It's handwritten. His letter. The game is over. Harry stands. You can publish everything. And as he walks toward the door, lighter now that the weight is gone, he says the line that ends part 1, now I go home, and beg for forgiveness. The studio door closes behind him, and for a moment, no one moves. 300 pages sit on the desk like a loaded weapon finally set down. Not metaphorically. Literally. Because once this file breathes air, nothing survives the blast radius untouched. Piers looks at the stack again, not as a presenter now, but as a man staring at evidence that rewrites a decade of history. This isn't gossip scribbled on blind items. This is structure, dates, transfers, metadata, the kind of material lawyers dream of and nightmares are made from. He flips the final tab, the endgame. This section isn't loud. It doesn't scream, it whispers, and somehow that's worse. A strategic roadmap, a phased plan, step-by-step escalation points mapped against public sympathy cycles, media windows, and royal calendar pressure moments. Phase 1, isolation. Phase 2, narrative capture. Phase 3, monetization. Phase 4, detonation. And sitting right there in cold bullet points is the phrase that makes the room freeze: post-divorce victim ascension. This wasn't survival. This was design. The documents outline timing scenarios. What happens if Harry breaks? What happens if he stays? What happens if he tries to leave? What happens if he returns to Britain alone? Custody leverage. Media offensives. Streaming content pivots. A public meltdown framed as abandonment. One page is highlighted in yellow. If subject attempts reconciliation with family, initiate scorched earth protocol. Piers exhales slowly. This wasn't love gone wrong. This was a hostile takeover that succeeded. He turns another page and finds a digital inventory. Cloud backups, offshore servers, encrypted drives. The archive wasn't just insurance. It was a dead man switch. And then something even darker appears. Emails drafted but never sent. Statements written years in advance, ready to deploy depending on which way the wind blew. Accusations preloaded. Tears prescripted. Outrage scheduled. Harry wasn't married. He was cast. The file reveals the final threat, the one that kept him frozen for years. America. If I leave, Harry wrote in his own notes, I lose them forever, and suddenly everything clicks. The panic. The spirals, the rage aimed at the wrong people, the interviews that never sounded settled because they weren't coming from freedom. They were coming from containment. This wasn't a man lashing out. This was a man trapped inside a narrative prison he didn't build but helped reinforce every time he defended it. The last subsection is brutal in its simplicity. The cost, Harry's own psychological assessments, therapy notes, medication changes, sleep deprivation logs, texts he sent but never remembered sending. One line is underlined in red pen, written in his handwriting, I don't know where I end and this script begins. That's the moment the fairy tale officially dies, because villains don't usually cry alone on bathroom floors at 3 a.m., wondering if their memories are real. Piers reaches the final page. It isn't evidence. It isn't accusation. It's projection. A memo written by Meghan herself outlining the post-exposure strategy if Harry ever discovered the truth. Discredit him. Frame him as unstable. Leak concern for his mental health. Position herself as protector. There it is, the final trap. Even now, even after everything, if he speaks, he's unstable. If he stays silent, she controls the story. There was no winning move, only escape. And escape is exactly what Harry chose when he walked out of that studio and back toward the one place place he never thought he'd return to as a broken man asking for mercy. London. Forgiveness isn't guaranteed, trust isn't automatic, the damage doesn't rewind. But something irreversible has happened. The illusion shattered. The carefully polished myth of a misunderstood duchess versus a cruel institution just cracked wide open, not because of critics, not because of tabloids, but because the one man who protected it finally stopped. The file closes with one final handwritten line from Harry, dated the night before the broadcast. "I was told love meant loyalty. I didn't know loyalty could be weaponized." That sentence alone explains everything. This isn't the end of the story. It's the end of control. Because once receipts exist, narratives die. Once timelines align, gaslighting collapses. Once the audience sees the strings, the puppet show is over. What happens next won't be quiet. Courts will move. Statements will fly. Allies will vanish. PR firms will scramble. Old clips will resurface with new meaning. Tears once framed as sincerity will be replayed with suspicion. And somewhere in California, someone will be realizing too late that the victim role only works when the other person stays silent. Harry didn't stay silent. He brought the black box, and the world just heard it crack open. Just heard it crack open. Just heard it crack open.